So y'all can think I'm a.
Nah, bro.
That ain't fair, nigga.
Hey,
I'm on EBT, bro.
hey.
That's why.
Kevin McCall's viral meltdown reignited old tensions with Chris Brown. But before the dust could settle, Young Thug stepped in, confronting Chris face to face. What started as a private talk turned into a heated back and forth. The leaked footage from that night shows just how bad it got. Let's break it down. The breakdown that shook the industry. October 20th, 2025 was the day the whole music game witnessed one of the most gut-wrenching moments in R&B history. Kevin McCall, at 40 years old, sat down for what was supposed to be just another podcast interview on Back on Fig. Nobody could have predicted that what went down during that almost 3-hour conversation would have the streets, the industry, and social media going absolutely crazy, pulling back the curtain on one of hip-hop and R&B's most toxic feuds. About 45 minutes into the interview, as the hosts were gassing him up about his undeniable talent, something inside my man's just snapped. He reached into his wallet and pulled out his EBT card, his electronic benefits transfer card, basically food stamps, fam. And then, right there on camera in front of the whole world, Kevin McCall straight up broke down crying.
Why the fuck?
You have a testimony.
Why
the tell your life?
Get in on this.
I witnessed it.
He finna be in here and
Why
tell
the
the
fuck I got an EBT card? And this is at Breezy Bowl and made 90 whatever the million, and it say KKKKK Max. Can I get 25,000 for them four songs I owe you, bro? I just want to leave, bro.
Leading up to who he is.
I'm not even tripping though. I got an EBT card, my nigga. Like what the, bro? I can't even get nothing, bro, man.
Bruh, it was raw as hell. It was painful to watch, and it was impossible not to feel some type of way, whether that was sympathy, disgust, or some complicated mix of both emotions hitting you at once. Here was a cat who had helped cook up some of the biggest bangers of the 2010s, whose contributions had made millions and millions of dollars, who had been part of Grammy-winning joints, now reduced to using government assistance just to eat. McCall kept it a buck and revealed that he was behind on $2,000 monthly child support payments for his daughter Marley with his ex, Eva Marcille. He admitted he hadn't seen his shorties in over a decade. My man disclosed having suicidal thoughts, talking that real, and through tears, snot, and gut-wrenching sobs that hit different, he made a direct plea to Chris Brown. Give me the $25,000 you owe me for those 4 songs, bro. McCall claimed the total unpaid royalties could be as much as $3 million, alleging that an invalid CBE deal had basically finessed him out of his fair share, and he pointed to the stark contrast that had everybody's jaws on the floor. While Chris Brown was in the middle of his Breezy Bowl 20 tour that would gross $90 to $100 million, performing songs McCall had helped write to sold-out stadiums with the crowd going wild, McCall was using food stamps and hiding his face in grocery stores to avoid the shame of it all. Like, damn.
Get my name.
Me and Heather, look, me and Heather went to the county building together. On my mama, together. We went to the county building together, bro.
The clip went stupid viral immediately, no cap. Within hours, it had millions of views across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. The whole internet was on fire. The main clip shared by @MyMixtapez on Twitter alone racked up over 9 million views. The streets were divided like crazy. Some folks saw a broken man who'd been played by the industry, a cautionary tale about the grimy side of the music business, where they don't love you like that. Others saw somebody reaping what he'd sown, a dude who'd threatened a child, who'd burned every bridge in sight, who'd made catastrophically bad decisions and was now trying to play victim when the chickens came home to roost. But then, something nobody saw coming happened. Somebody stepped into the conversation who had the credibility, the bread, and the relationship with both parties to potentially make something shake. Enter Young Thug, fresh out the jam and ready to show some love. On October 21st, 2025, literally just one day after McCall's breakdown had the whole internet in shambles, Young Thug posted on Twitter, "Kevin McCall hit me, my nigga. I'll give you the 25,000 you need, and I know CB would give it to you also, bro. He a real one. Ains is busy sometimes, Breda." Yo, this was a remarkable gesture for several reasons, and the culture took notice immediately. First off, Young Thug was offering to personally cover the $25,000 McCall claimed he was owed. That's real money, not clout chasing. Second, he was doing it publicly, which put both McCall and Brown in interesting positions where everybody could see what's really good. And third, perhaps most significantly for the culture, he was defending Chris Brown while helping Kevin McCall, threading an almost impossible needle like a real one. To understand why this hit different, you need to understand Young Thug and Chris Brown's relationship, and trust me, it runs deep. These two had real history together, authentic friendship forged through collaboration and mutual respect. In 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic when everybody was locked down, they'd created Slime and B, a 13-track mixtape that showcased their chemistry and had the streets buzzing. The lead single, Go Crazy, had reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and gone 4 times platinum. That's certified pressure. But more than that, the loyalty loyalty ran both ways. When Young Thug had been arrested in May 2022 on RICO charges and spent over 2 years locked up fighting his case, Chris Brown had been one of the artists to show him real support, not just industry love. Brown had posted #FreeYSL, had spoken about Thug in interviews with genuine affection and concern, keeping his name alive.
They're actually basically on a text message saying word. That's all they saying. Like it's one dude saying, yo, do this, and one dude is saying word. What do you feel about that?
I mean, I can't speak for my brothers in them cases and right. What they going on. I can only be who I always been, they brother. You know, I'm a rock with them for life. It's us, never them.
So when Thug offered to help McCall, he wasn't snitching on Brown or switching sides like a goofy. He was trying to be a mediator, to extend compassion to someone clearly in crisis, while also defending his homie's character. That's real G shit. The fact that he explicitly said, CB would give it to you, also bro, he a real one, and explained that niggas is busy sometimes, showed he wasn't picking sides. McCall responded within hours, showing love. What's up, bro? I'm just seeing this. About to DM you now. It seemed like maybe, just maybe, there could be some resolution to all this madness. Young Thug, fresh out the feds himself, and clearly in a mindset of giving back to the community. He'd held a charity event in August 2025 for Atlanta kids, showing he was really about that life, was extending a hand to someone who desperately needed it. But if Thug's gesture was meant to squash the beef and de-escalate the situation, Chris Brown had completely different energy and other plans for how this was gonna play out. On October 22nd, 2025, Brown posted on his Instagram stories with the pettiness turned all the way up. Remember this, you can't walk across a burnt bridge. And you know what's funnier than a troll? A broke one. Bruh, that was savage as hell. It was dismissive, cold-blooded, and it made Brown's position crystal clear like a windshield after detailing. There would be no reconciliation, no forgiveness, no money, no nothing. The bridge wasn't just burned, it was incinerated, destroyed, gone, and McCall had been the one holding the torch and the gasoline. The response had social media divided even further, with the culture picking sides. On Twitter, sentiment seemed to lean about 70% in favor of Brown, with the streets backing him heavy. People kept bringing up that McCall had threatened Brown's daughter, that he'd had multiple chances and fumbled them all, that his current situation was largely self-inflicted, and he couldn't blame nobody but himself. One viral tweet that had everybody talking captured the sentiment perfectly. Before anyone says Chris Brown is being mean, context, Kevin McCall threatened to kill him and his daughter Royalty. But others felt Brown's response was unnecessarily cruel, like he was kicking a man while he was down. Here was a dude clearly struggling with mental health issues, battling demons, someone who'd contributed to Brown's success back when he needed it most, and Brown's response was to mock his poverty and clown him publicly. Some folks pointed out that the music industry has a long history of exploiting songwriters and producers, leaving them broke while the artists they helped blow up get rich, and that regardless of McCall's personal failings and wild behavior, if he was genuinely owed money, he should be paid. That's just business. But to understand how we got to this explosive moment, with McCall sobbing on camera and Brown clapping back with no mercy, we need to rewind the tape all the way back to where this brotherhood first began, back when they were just two young cats trying to make it in the industry. When brothers become enemies. March 9th, 2016. That's the day when Kevin McCall decided he'd had enough of suffering in silence, keeping his pain to himself while the industry kept moving. He took to Twitter and fired off a message that would reignite their beef in spectacular fashion. At Chris Brown, we need to sit down and handle this business. I tried the adult business route. I feel my kindness is being taken for weakness. It was a public call out, a line drawn in the sand for the whole world to see. McCall wasn't just airing dirty laundry for clout. He was demanding accountability, demanding a seat at the table to discuss what he felt were years of unpaid royalties and broken promises, the type of industry politics that destroy careers. But if McCall thought Brown would respond with a private conversation or even a conciliatory statement to dead the beef, he was about to be sorely disappointed. Fam. The very next day, March 10th, 2016, Brown posted a lengthy Instagram rant that left no doubt about where he stood and that he wasn't backing down. It was savage, it was personal, and it was very public, the type of response that ends friendships permanently. Brown called McCall a bottom feeder and issued a chilling warning that had everybody's eyes wide. Keep fucking with me and you won't be able to walk, let alone sing again. Let that marinate for a second. This wasn't just a business disagreement anymore, not some behind-the-scenes industry drama. This was a threat, veiled perhaps, but a threat nonetheless, and everybody in the culture knew what that meant. And it was coming from someone who, despite his musical genius and undeniable talent, had a well-documented history of violence and anger management issues that the whole world had witnessed. McCall, ever the defiant one who wasn't about to back down, initially eventually tried to play it cool and keep his composure. He posted on Snapchat, "I'm Chris Brown's #1 fan, actually." It was either an attempt at sarcasm or a genuine expression of conflicted feelings, probably both, real talk. Here was somebody who'd looked up to Brown like a mentor, who'd helped create some of his biggest bangers, now being threatened by the man he once called his little brother and rode for heavy. But the back and forth didn't stop there, not by a long shot. If anything, it escalated to new levels of pettiness. Throughout 2016, McCall was going back and forth between demanding Brown release him from his contract and expressing admiration for Brown's talent. It was a bizarre dance of anger and nostalgia, of betrayal and brotherhood that couldn't quite be let go, the type of toxic relationship everybody in the hood has seen play out. In June 2016, McCall even dropped a diss track called Beruche, a play on the name of Brown's ex Karueche Tran, and the streets took notice. He later admitted, keeping it 100, that he used Karueche as inspiration specifically to get under Chris's skin. It was petty as hell, it was calculated, and it showed just how far their relationship had deteriorated, from brothers to enemies who wanted to hurt each other. Then came December 11th, 2017, when McCall took things to another level entirely, crossing a line that had the whole culture talking. He posted an Instagram video challenging Brown to a fist fight, calling him a bitch for bringing guns to a fist fight. He was questioning Brown's authenticity, his gangster persona that he'd been cultivating, essentially calling him out as someone who talked tough but couldn't back it up man to man in a fair one. And then, in what might be the most symbolic gesture of their broken relationship, the moment that really showed it was over, McCall took his platinum plaque for Deuces, that song that had started it all, that had launched both their careers to new heights and made them both rich, and smashed it on camera like it was nothing. "Deuces to my past," he captioned the video, a bitter play on words that captured the death of a friendship and everything they'd built together. Brown's response, emojis, just 2 emojis, face with a neutral expression, face with tears of joy, a dismissive, almost bored reaction that probably hurt McCall more than any lengthy response could have, cutting deeper than any words. It was the ultimate insult in hip-hop culture. "You're not even worth my words, my energy, my time." And that's when Kevin McCall crossed a line that would make reconciliation impossible, burning the bridge beyond repair. On January 6th, 2018, McCall posted a series of tweets that shocked even those who'd been following their beef closely and thought they'd seen everything. He wrote some wild shit. "Chris Brown and his seed would be in a casket if he had anything to do with me being shot. Stop playing with rumors, or I can't promise CB will make 29. I kept him alive for 7 years now in LA. Let's be absolutely clear about what went down here, no cap." McCall threatened not just Chris Brown, but Brown's daughter Royalty, who was just 3 years old at the time, an innocent child who had nothing to do with their beef. He referred to her as his seed and suggested both father and daughter would be in a casket if Brown had been involved in his shooting. That's beyond disrespectful. That's unforgivable in the culture. The backlash was immediate and severe, with the whole internet coming for McCall's neck. Fans were outraged and disgusted. Social media exploded with condemnation from all corners. One Twitter user captured the sentiment that everybody was feeling. "I don't care how much you hate Chris Brown. You don't threaten someone's child like that." Even people who had been sympathetic to McCall's financial grievances and felt he'd been done dirty turned against him immediately. There are unwritten rules in hip-hop, in street culture, in any culture really, and threatening children is one of the most sacred lines you don't cross. That's off limits, period. McCall quickly tried to walk it back and do damage control, claiming he was quoting Bible verses, eye for an eye, and that he actually loved Brown and his child and would kill for them, not kill them, trying to flip the script. He insisted people were misunderstanding him, that it was just hypothetical warnings about the dangers of spreading rumors. But that explanation didn't fly with nobody. But the damage was done, irreversible. Whatever sympathy McCall had built up, whatever legitimate grievances he might have had about unpaid royalties and broken contracts that deserved to be addressed, all of it was overshadowed by those tweets that showed he'd lost control. He'd threatened a child, and in doing so, he'd given Brown the moral high ground and a perfectly legitimate reason to never speak to him again, to cut him off completely. In 2019, McCall doubled down on his pattern of erratic behavior by going on a rant where he wished Chris Brown's fans would commit suicide. It was another shocking statement that had everybody's jaw dropping, another bridge burned in flames, another example of someone whose pain and frustration had metastasized into something toxic and self-destructive that was destroying his own life. And through all of this drama, all this back and forth chaos, Chris Brown stayed largely silent, moving different. He didn't need to engage or respond to every little thing. McCall was doing enough damage to himself without Brown having to lift a finger or say a word. In a resurfaced 2020 video, Brown finally addressed the situation indirectly, flexing his success while questioning McCall's talent in a way that cut deep. If he wrote all these songs he claiming he wrote, why he ain't write no more? It was brutal, it was effective, and it highlighted a painful truth that nobody could deny. While Brown's career had continued to soar to new heights, multiple platinum albums, sold-out tours across the globe, Grammy wins. McCall's had stalled completely and crashed. His 2017 album Man of God went nowhere, didn't even make a ripple. His net worth, which should have been in the millions given his contributions to Brown's success and the hits they made together, had plummeted to almost nothing. But the story doesn't end there, not even close. Because while Kevin McCall was spiraling out of control, dealing with his own demons, his own failed relationships, his own struggles with mental health and substance abuse that were tearing his life apart, the world kept turning and moving forward. But to understand how we got to this point, we need to go all the way back to the beginning, back to where this whole saga started. The rise and fall of a brotherhood. To understand the full picture, we need to rewind to where it all began. Back to 2009, when a young Kevin McCall from Watts, Los Angeles, made a bold move that would change the trajectory of his life forever and put him on the map. Picture this scene. Kevin McCall, fresh out of college where he'd been a student athlete playing football and chasing NFL dreams, found himself at an industry event trying to network. He spotted Chris Brown, then just 20 years old himself, desperately trying to rebuild his career after the devastating 2009 assault on Rihanna that had turned him into a pariah overnight, canceled by the industry. McCall, in what he would later describe as a moment of pure determination and hunger, literally pinned Chris against a wall to pitch his demos, not taking no for an answer. It was audacious, it was gutsy, it was hood hustle at its finest, and remarkably, it worked.
How did Deuces come together?
Deuces came together, he was doing, In My Zone did well, so he wanted to click up with Tyga. He was a fan of him, he felt like he had buzz popping at the time, he wanted to link up with him and do a joint album.
Brown, intrigued by McCall's raw talent and perhaps seeing something of himself in this hungry young artist grinding to get on, invited him to the studio. What followed was a period McCall would later describe as magical, a time when he wasn't just a collaborator, but family, real day ones. Brown signed McCall to his CBE, Chris Brown Entertainment, imprint in a joint venture with RCA Records, positioning him as his protege during one of the most crucial periods of Brown's career. This was Brown's comeback era, the moment he needed to prove to the world that he was more than the worst moment of his life, that he could still make hits. And together, they created straight fire, no cap. The chemistry between them was undeniable, magnetic, resulting in some of the biggest hits of the early 2000s that still bang today. There was Deuces, the 2010 single featuring Tyga that would peak at number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100 and become an anthem. But here's where the story gets interesting and shows the complexity of their relationship. Deuces was originally McCall's song, his baby. He'd written it about his first love, a breakup that had left him raw and vulnerable, pouring his heart out on the track.
That was your song?
It was my song.
Ah.
It was a separate package from the whole thing. It's like, here's your 10 songs. Oh, and guess what? Listen to this in the car. He was listening to it the whole week. And he's like, nah, I need that song. I need that song.
McCall gave it to Brown under one condition. He had to stay on the track. Couldn't just take the whole thing. Brown agreed, brought in Tyga to add that extra sauce, and the rest is history. Certified. The song earned a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Cha Sung Collaboration and generated massive royalties. McCall claims he received over 6 figures just for Deuces alone. Life-changing money. For a kid from Watts who'd been working at Abercrombie & Fitch just months before, struggling to make rent, it must have felt like winning the lottery, like all his dreams were finally coming true. But Deuces was just the beginning of their run. McCall co-wrote and featured on Strip in 2011, which peaked at number 37 on the Hot 100 and had the clubs turned. He contributed to Look at Me Now, the chart-topping collaboration with Busta Rhymes and Lil Wayne that became Brown's first #1. One hit and went crazy on the radio. His fingerprints were all over Brown's FAME album, the project that would win Brown his first Grammy and cement his comeback as one of R&B's biggest stars. McCall also wrote for other artists during this period, including Carrie Hilson's One Night Stand, showing his versatility, establishing himself as one of R&B's most sought-after writers in the game.
Not for 1 second. It always felt better. If it was just me and Chris Brown, I don't think the record would be as good. I think it's the whole shebang. I think it's us three, and just, it was what was meant, and I never got jealous of either one of them. I always wanted the best for both of them, and I hope they wanted that for me.
For a brief, shining moment, Kevin McCall was living the dream that every kid from the hood dreams about. He was at the epicenter of R&B's renaissance, working alongside one of the biggest stars in the world, creating hits that would define a generation and get played at every party, every club. Brown called McCall his big brother in interviews, and their studio sessions were described as family affairs, full of creative energy, laughter, and brotherly love, the type of bond that's supposed to last forever. But beneath the surface, beneath all the success success and the hits, cracks were beginning to form like fractures in concrete. And these weren't just small fissures, they were fault lines that would eventually tear their relationship apart completely and violently. The first signs of trouble emerged around 2013 to 2014 as McCall began to feel boxed in, like he was being controlled, like he was chafing under what he felt were restrictions on his artistic freedom and creative vision. In a revealing 2015 Vlad TV interview that went viral, McCall explained that Brown wanted him to project a grown, sexy, thug appeal image. But this clashed with McCall's own vision for his career and who he wanted to be as an artist.
I mean, Chris, he had this image of me. He wanted me to just grown, sexy, had this thug appeal. And we kind of just didn't see eye to eye. I didn't see the vision he had at the same time. It could have just been a small conversation. But for whatever reason, he didn't see eye to eye with whatever he was trying to do with my career at the time.
The breaking point came with an incident that, in retrospect, seems almost trivial, but would set off a chain reaction of events that neither man could have predicted, like dominoes falling. In 2014, Keke Palmer, yes, that Keke Palmer from the memes, reached out to McCall as a fan, wanting to collaborate on some music. McCall, eager to establish his own identity outside of Brown's shadow and make his own lane, jumped at the opportunity without hesitation. They created the video for Shorty Wanna Ride, and McCall was hyped about the project, thinking it would help his solo career take off, but Brown wasn't feeling it at all. According to McCall, Brown called him up and expressed his displeasure in no uncertain terms, not holding back. Brown felt the collaboration was a bad look. Palmer's wholesome, Disney-affiliated image clashed with the edgier persona Brown was trying to cultivate for his roster and his brand. But it wasn't just artistic disagreement, it was about control, about who had the power.
Chris was upset about it, felt like it was a bad look. So he decided to call me on the phone and tell me how much of a bad look, but he didn't tell me in a professional way, so I had to, check him and let him know, don't ever talk to me like that again.
McCall claims that during this phone call, Brown threatened to ruin his career and ensure that the label never fucks with him, basically trying to blackball him from the industry. For McCall, who'd been raised to stand up for himself, who'd come from the streets of Watts where respect was everything and you can't let nobody punk you, this was a line Brown shouldn't have crossed, a violation of the code.
I'm not Drake, I'm not Frank Ocean, you're gonna run into me again.
The confrontation was a turning point in their relationship, the moment everything changed. McCall felt disrespected, treated not as the collaborator and brother he thought he was, but as an employee who'd stepped out of line and needed to be put in his place. And perhaps more significantly, he began to suspect that Brown's manager had been working behind the scenes to sabotage his solo career, allegedly telling him to shut down his projects and keeping him from getting opportunities. Meanwhile, the money, or lack thereof, was becoming an increasingly sore point that was eating at McCall. Despite Deuces becoming a massive hit with over 500 million streams on Spotify today, still getting spins, McCall claims he never saw the back-end royalties he was owed, never got his fair share of the pie. He alleges that his publishing deal through Chris Brown's company was exploitative, that he didn't understand what he was signing because he was young and hungry, and that he was essentially locked into unfavorable terms without proper legal representation, the type of predatory deal that ruins careers.
I mean, were you being offered publishing deals and stuff like that during this time?
I did a publishing deal through Chris. I didn't understand any of that. So everything was through Chris, and that's why what I was trying to get to is once me and his relationship kind of got funny, he kind of, the business and stuff was all held up and messed up.
McCall's deal with RCA, which had been facilitated through Brown's connections and clout, also fell apart like a house of cards. He describes a grimy situation where he was never officially listed as a signed artist on the label's website, where his budget was mysteriously spent on producers he didn't need because he was already a producer himself with skills, where promises were made and broken with alarming regularity, typical industry shenanigans. And perhaps most painfully for someone who'd given so much to these projects, McCall claims that Brown removed his credits from songs like Look at Me Now, effectively erasing him from tracks he'd helped create and taking away his legacy. Whether this was intentional malice, poor record keeping, or something else entirely, to McCall it felt like betrayal of the highest order, being written out of history by someone he'd helped make a star. Thank you for watching. If you like this, check out the recommended videos by clicking the cards on your screen.